evening and welcome to the June 8th, 2023 York County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. Tonight, the order of business will be the approval of the previous minutes from last month. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Anyone have any comments?
Motion to approve as written.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. We have no old business, so we'll move on to new business, and we have one case to review tonight. The way this will work, you'll give your presentation, or staff will give their presentation. You'll come up, give yours. Doesn't look like there's anybody here at this point in time to speak for or against, but if there was, or if there will be somebody show up, they'll get their opportunity. And then we'll close it, the public side, and then we'll open it for the board for a motion to accept, deny, or defer, and then we discuss and vote. Pretty straightforward. So, case Z23-9V.
All right, good evening. This is our first case and only case of the evening. I'm Marion Ray. I'm a zoning planner for York County. And I'll flip, maybe. Wait, it's not on. Here we go. All right, our variance request tonight, the applicant is Sharon Salisbury. She is the owner at 4611 Water Oak Drive. The zoning there is RSF 40, and they are under the Lake Wiley overlay. They're requesting a variance of the location of an accessory structure within the Lake Wiley overlay. They are a lakefront lot. Here you can see the vicinity map. They're there. It's one of the old recreation lots. It's not part of the subdivision around it. There are about 14 old recreation lots along that little peninsula there, and then the development behind it came in later. Here you can see it's all zoned RSF 40 there. It's on Pole Branch up near North Carolina, mixture of residential and agricultural zonings. And I've got the site plan here, and I colored it up for everybody. The pale green is the Lake Wiley buffer. The blue is the house, along with subsequent decks and porches, that kind of thing. That's the envelope of the house. And then the red is the proposed garage. They are only requesting, they only need a location variance, as opposed to some of our recent variances, it's just location. Go on to the next one. We had some aerials taken. This is facing south toward the lake. You're over Water Oak here. And the house here with the trees in the front and to the right side, and then a cleared area to the left. And they've done some work on the house as they bought it. They've had some major renovations on the interior of the house, added a front stoop, that kind of thing. It's one of the original 70s lake houses. Here you go, another view of the side area here. The house never had a garage. It's always been in its configuration. That's the master bedroom up front. Another angle. And then the elevations of the proposed garage. It should be fairly consistent with the existing house. The existing house you see has been painted out white, pale beige. The garage will be consistent with that. So they are not requesting a variance from that either. We'll go through the approval criteria here. The first finding, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. The subject parcel contains 1.06 acres with a regular shape. The existing home encroaches on the Lake Wiley 50-foot buffer. There's adequate room to the eastern side of the house, the left side from the pictures, outside the buffer to place the garage structure. It's a garage/ADU. Therefore, staff finds proposed variance does not meet this criteria since there is room. These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Adjacent Lake Wiley recreation lots comply with the Lake Wiley overlay standard. The original 15 Lake Wiley recreation lots on Water Oak Drive have appropriately placed garages, or the garage is attached to the primary home. Therefore, staff finds proposed variance does not meet this standard. For the next one, because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of this property. The applicant has the option to either attach the garage to the existing home, negating the need for a variance. In addition, there's adequate room on the eastern portion of the parcel to meet setback requirements and stay out of the Lake Wiley buffer. Therefore, the application of this section of the code would not unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, and staff finds the proposed variance does not meet this criteria. For D, the finding is the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Neighboring properties on Water Oak comply with the Lake Wiley overlay standard for garage placement or attachment. Therefore, should the applicant be granted the requested variance, the character of the district will be significantly changed. The photos supplied by the applicant in your packet are for properties on River Oaks Drive, which is across the cove and not adjacent to the applicant's home. Therefore, staff finds the proposed variance does not meet this criteria. We have a couple, staff recommends denial because they do not meet all four findings for unnecessary hardship. We have a couple of extra pictures here. The red solid line would be basically where the Lake Wiley buffer is, and the dotted line would be the proposed location of the garage meeting setback requirements. Obviously, none of this is to scale, but it's relatively appropriate in this. And then I made up one, the kind of the butterscotch color there in the middle. If they left the garage in its current location, proposed location, they could attach the garage to the home. It just has to be a heated, enclosed hallway. We would not need a variance in that case. Also did another one just moving it back. We wouldn't need a variance in this case either. And then I went through, and I apologize for the colors. I chose pink and yellow because I wanted to. Yellow are the detached garages, and this includes lake lots, the old recreation lots, and the subdivision behind. The pink are the approximate locations of attached garages. Some of them have three-car garages in an L shape, but just to give you an idea, there are only 3 detached immediate garages, and they're all to the rear of the existing homes. I think that was my last one. It was. You have any questions for staff?
So I assumed that there's a statement in the packet regarding building materials. I assumed that was just a carryover from a previous application that somehow got mixed in this one?
Yes. The building materials, since it's going to be cohesive with the existing structure from the 70s, those materials are no longer available, and they've painted the brick. So anything that's in the relatively same color and of appropriate distinction, I guess, would be appropriate in this case. So they do not need a cladding variance.
So when staff analyzes an application, do you take into account like where drain fields and septic tanks are? Because I mean, you've proposed putting the garage more or less even with the front sight line of the house, you know, to the left, I believe. Mm-hmm. But from the picture that I see, there's a drain field there. And considering the topography of the lot, I would think it would be difficult to put the drain field further up the hill.
It's a proposed drain field. It's not an existing drain field, so we do not take that in consideration.
Can you go back to the site plan? Well, that was good. That was good.
This one.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Lost my train of thought. The 50-yard buffer and then the line behind it, which says gray water no longer in use. Mm-hmm. That's not a buffer or a setback that they need to adhere to?
No, that's it's one of the old original lake lots. They would have had a different septic system when it was built.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if they encroach on that, okay.
It'll probably be torn out if the drain field is placed in that location.
Gray water line, is that what we used to refer to as a high water mark?
The gray water, no, that's the old septic line.
That's a
Oh,
fig,
Okay, okay, it's.
it's an actual line,
gray
that's what you're
water
saying?
mark. Okay.
Okay.
Could you go through your,
Oh.
your proposals, or the proposals that you showed the picture of, like this is one?
Right, these are the two that we suggested to negate a variance, but
Okay.
the first color-coded one,
I believe there was 3, wasn't there?
I think there was 3.
That's proposed.
That's their proposed, right, okay.
oh,
That's one there.
That's one, the dotted line one, yeah.
and the other one,
Oh, okay.
So they wouldn't need any kind of connection on that one?
No, because it would,
right, if they
Because it's
placed it
okay,
there,
Okay,
everything's fine.
all right.
Oh, I just wanted to add really quick too, in thinking about this. It looks like they also too could place it along that front wall plane, the 23.4, like an attached, fully attached garage and be like a side loaded. So that's just another option as well.
did you take under consideration, I noticed in one of your photos, there was quite a bit of trees along the roadside, along the Water Oak Drive. Can you go back to that? I just want to see, okay, so it is pretty bare right there. Okay, so you wouldn't have to take down any trees. Okay. I didn't know if that encroached or not, but it doesn't look like it.
The applicant may be able to answer that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, good evening. This is my first time, so bear with me. I did bring with the
If you could,
builder.
yeah, and if you could, start,
Oh,
your
yep,
name
sorry.
and address, all that.
And behind me is Aaron Dunham. He's going to be the one who submitted the permit, as he'll be the one building the garage. So he might have to help me with maybe some of the questions y'all might have. One of the reasons why we,
I need your, before you start, I need your name and
Sharon Salisbury,
your address.
4611 Water Oak Drive.
Sorry, it's formality.
And that's okay. So one of the reasons why we wanted the garage to be located where it was is in this picture, first, it needs to be about 10 feet if it's not attached to the home. So it's not drawn to scale because the garage would actually have to be 10 feet from the side of the house. The other thing it's not showing is, I'm not sure if that's actually as deep as the garage is going to be, but as someone brought up, the septic tank that would be needed for the detached garage, it no longer could be as it originally was allowed, and we did have a flood certification and septic come and make sure that the septic could be done as the way it could. But if the drain fields then go up closer, you're getting really close to the well house. Because as you can see, the well house is actually towards the north of the lot. So if we then propose it where the drain fields aren't going to the side and down, but rather going up, it's then going to be too close to the well house because it has to be within so many feet of the well house. The other thing is we don't want to get so close to that buffer that then we get into problems if we needed to have any of the plumbing and the septic and anything that comes out of the back. So we definitely since we've purchased the home, which was about 11 years ago, we have been very careful to kind of preserve its beauty the way it is when it comes to the trees and some of the things that we've done. So we don't want to skirt that line and get so close to that 50-foot buffer with that garage now. The proposal picture here with the attached breezeway, as she mentioned, that's our master bedroom. So I'm not sure where you would, if you come in through that breezeway, I guess at where she's got it located, you'd actually be coming right into our walk-in closet. So that's not really something that would be, to me, realistic, because then we would have to pretty much reconfigure the entire inside of our home, because there's the master bedroom closet and then there's the master bathroom. And so then we've got to reconfigure all the plumbing and so forth that goes in from the interior. So that is one of the reasons why we didn't do the attached, why we were going to do the detached, is because just the way that the floor plan is of the home and the plumbing, it would have been too difficult to figure out a way to attach the garage. So we figured we needed to do just a detached. The other thing that this is not showing is the slope of the lot. So the lot actually does slope quite a bit towards the lake, and you really can't tell in some of the photos that she has. But if the doors where you come in, if the garage were to be detached this way, all of that water is gonna rush right in through the garage bay doors, and we're gonna probably have quite a bit of moisture issues. Also, with it being sloped the way it is, it's gonna have to be raised quite a bit higher than probably the house, because it's sitting back further from the house. So that was our other concern, is if we just put the garage bay doors the way she's got it, the way all that water comes and slopes down, we've had to do quite a bit of landscape design to already divert the water away from coming in the front of our house. So the reason there currently is that big stone paver in our front doors and all the rocks that go away around, that's actually been our way of doing like a French drain, but doing it in a way that's more natural. So now when all that water pours down the driveway, it hits those stones, those rocks, and it actually gets diverted around the house. And I'm not sure how we can now do that if we put the garage door the way she's got it facing and detached and behind, because all that water is just gonna come pouring in those garage doors. So those were two of our biggest concerns when they had said, well, can you attach it and can you place it? Our big concern is, again, is gonna be that 50-foot setback, making sure we don't encroach that to the septic lines and how that would work, considering there's no room then for those septic lines. And then 3, if we attach it, we've then got to reconfigure the entire inside of our home. Now, I did submit several examples of homes that were on River Oaks, which is the street right next to ours, that have done detached garages in front of the home. And we found out that this variance was very new. I guess they just came up with this last year. So, because we've been in this process of slowly renovating and making this home more appealing. We have a fabulous neighborhood and great neighbors, and I have already spoken to several neighbors as the sign's been out, and they have gotten the cards, and they were all very supportive and very accepting. In fact, I even spoke to the gentleman who is in charge of the newer homes and that are part of that subdivision, and he was very much in favor and said that he thought it would actually look better to be a side load detached garage than for the home to be one forever long continuing home blocking the entire lake. And our home is a little different than the other 14 because our home does sit so close to the lake. If you look at some of the other homes that she's got, let's see if I can find it. Well, let's see if she had, if she had one closer. It's looking, you can see we're only, from our deck to the lake is like almost 20 feet. But if you look at the other homes that she was mentioning, oh, there it is, showing the garages of the other homes here, we sit closer to that and in that 50-foot buffer than the other homes that are there in the neighborhood. So the ones across the street, those were newer. They're not even near the lake. That's not a concern, the 50-foot setback. But the other ones, they don't sit as close to that lake and close to that 50-foot buffer where we're actually even encroaching in it as we do. And therefore, I feel like with the garage being detached and sitting in front of the home, it does still have great curb appeal because we have so much room in front of the home right now that it would not be a garage that would be right off the road. It would still be very far back from the road.
Can you go to that picture that showed the dash? Yeah,
one?
that one. I'm just trying to get this straight in my head. That what you're proposing is right where that gray car is, that would be halfway inside the garage, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we've currently been parking where the dark vehicle is. That's about exactly what we were picturing of where we would even park inside a garage, except a little bit further, so that it's not in front of the home.
Is this your French drain outlet right now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you go back to the picture that had the proposed attachment?
The breezeway one or
The
the?
breezeway.
Is it other direction? Let's see. There.
Okay, so is there no option or version of this that could, I know the way it's turned now, it's looking, from our perspective, it looks a little bit horizontal. But there's no version of that that could be attached along the side of the house and connect? You see where it says concrete?
Oh, okay, so you're saying have the breezeway or so forth connect to that
Or
side?
what are the parameters with how it would be attached?
So are you saying like having I guess looking at this, having the left side of that garage wall attached to the wall that's 23.4 feet?
Right,
Essentially
coming
just,
down
well, just,
through
or
there,
pushing it
is there-
forward too.
What is that?
No, I think he's saying turning the whole walkway to come in.
Right, you see with the yellow, where she put the proposed yellow attachment?
Yeah.
If there was some way it ran over where it says concrete, because you got concrete there, I'm assuming you walk along that around to the back of the house. If that breezeway somehow, and that's why I'm asking, are you confined as to how you can attach? Because as she described it, you could have the garage there, but if you just kind of modified how it's attached,
Can we
Then
go back to the
wouldn't that
picture side of the
basically
house? I
be
don't know if that
true?
roof line's gonna work right there with it. Can you
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Dunham. So,
Address, please.
Ed,
what's that?
Address.
Name and address.
1786 Canebrook Glen in York, South Carolina. So right there where the French drain is, all the drainage would have to go under that. That's number one. If we built that across there, all the drainage would have to be moved under that because everything just goes uphill from there. So there's no other way to get that drainage to go around the garage if we just put it to the side of the house. And also, you can see the condensers on the side of the house. So that would have to be relocated, along with her having to resituate her closet and all that on the side of her house.
but that's if this were the proposed option, correct?
If this was a proposed option, then I don't know if we had, what the problem with this one is where the septic lines are, because we can't be within, it has to be 25 foot off of the buffer, the septic lines, and it has to be 75 feet from the well. So it's stuck. It's right wherever the engineer drew it is where it goes. So where that is, we could probably have to pump it up there if we had to. That just includes a lot of extra
But
cost.
go back to the other picture. Let's
Okay.
not look at this. This is not the discussion.
This one,
This
okay.
one, where that garage is, let's not even look at the yellow box.
Okay.
Where that garage is, where that red box is,
Mhm.
that presents no problem for you.
Zero problem, zero problem.
But my question is, her concern was how that breezeway would be attached in that picture.
Correct.
There is no way to modify or alter the design or how that breezeway is attached, which lets her keep the garage there, and then she, as stated, you just modifying how it's attached.
The main issue is the drainage. That's the main issue with
So
that.
drainage is an issue here too.
Yeah, then the garage, if the garage sits there, it's gonna have to sit up higher, at a higher elevation from how her lot slopes. So it needs to sit up a little bit higher than her elevation of her, slab on her house. And so then it would just be from that breezeway would have to drop down, which you could drop it down, but it still is just the drainage issue.
Because the water now drains right where that yellow bar is. So if you have a permanent structure there, which is the attached breezeway, which has to be heated and cooled the same way as the rest of the home, that water now does not flow between those two structures. Because that's where it now flows, is it goes right between those two structures.
I mean, my main question was, honestly, I just wanted to know what the main purpose of what was the change. Because a year ago or year and a half, this met the requirements, the zoning requirements. What changed? Like, what was the reason behind it?
That's a question for staff, right?
Staff need to have this big recode.
Well, I'm not saying for a recode. That's why we want a variance. So we don't want a recode. I didn't know how this is affecting what. I just wanted to know the purpose. Since it was okay.
Really, that's the question to, especially this particular section of the ordinance, is really a question for county council.
Oh, okay.
That's not really anything that we had anything to
So
do
we
with.
don't know why the change happened, or?
And this is strictly, this particular problem is the Lake Wiley overlay, because a lot of people consider the lakeside kind of the front of the house.
Sure.
It's kind of reverse of, that a house that wouldn't be on the lake.
Sure. I think the general idea was to prevent unsightly behemoth
Aesthetics.
structures in front of houses. I think that
Okay.
happened a few times. And so this was a way to try to make that not
Mitigate
happen again.
Okay.
Well, if that's the reason, I don't think this would be an unsightly behemoth structure in front of the home. And if that was the reason for the variance, I feel like that wouldn't be the problem with this particular one. That's why we have the plans. But just again, Mr. Williams, to tell you why we felt like this was the hardest, why this wouldn't work for us, is two-part reasons. One is then we got to figure out what to do with that drainage, which is now going between the two structures. And then two, where are you entering into from that connected breezeway? Are you entering into the master bedroom closet, or are you entering into the master bathroom? And so no matter, that's what is in that entire corner, whether you come in from the side, the corner side where the air conditioning unit is, so now we'd have to relocate that, or if you come into the front corner, it's still all the master bedroom closet. So it would be two problems now that we've got for that issue.
I have a question. You need to ask her anything?
No, I'm good.
And I'm not saying which way this is gonna go, but if we were to approve this and put a condition on that it has to be these plans and it can't change from these plans, are y'all okay with that? I mean, is this exactly what y'all are gonna build?
Yes, absolutely. We're ready to move forward. And so these are the exact plans that we were planning on building.
Thank you.
So here's an idea, I don't know if it helps any or not, but I take it that where on the site plan you see AB 1, 2, 3, 4, that is the proposed new drain field. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So have you considered just dropping the ADU part of the project and just building a garage? Where you don't need a drain field?
No, sir, we definitely do want the accessory unit above the garage. My mother-in-law and father-in-law would not be very happy so.
I don't know, sometimes it seems like folks maybe overreach within the limits of what they have. So that's the reason for the question.
So you're saying like just put the garage and not do,
Well, if you don't have that drain field there, you know, a lot of what you have said is you have to keep a new drain field a certain distance from the well. You got to keep it a certain distance from the property line. You have to keep it away from the buffer. Well, if you don't have a drain field, you don't have to worry about any of that. It gives you a
Well,
lot
we
more
still
options for how
do.
you move that garage around.
because if we didn't have the drain field and we just put it, let's say, back behind the property structure, then we still have the issue of the drainage of all the water then just flowing into the garage.
It seems to me if you've been able to handle the water flow to the house, and you now have a sizable gap between the garage and the house, that you should be able to grade that to where you could manage the water. I can understand, looking at this map, where, yeah, you would be trapping a tremendous amount of water every time it rained. But if you're able to fix the water getting in your house, which you said you have done, you have had water problems in the past, and you've been able to fix that, it seems to me you ought to be able to fix it with the garage also.
So let's say like this picture here, now we're proposing with that, taking out the septic, so we're just gonna completely change it, not have a septic or the finished space above the garage. So we're completely changing what we're wanting to build there altogether. Part of the problem, I think, of what you're saying is, why can't we just keep diverting it around the house? Because to try to get it to now narrow in between where that sidewalk is, to get into the garage, we're gonna have to continue to pave more over. And so what's happening is that water is gonna rush a lot faster down a paved driveway into those garage doors, trying to get it away, than before when you've got landscaping that's diverting it around the house. So we would have to try to landscape in a 10-foot window all that water, even though there's pavement. That it'd be hard to divert it with landscaping when you've still got pavement, because it's gonna be all paved over to the side.
Yeah. There are solutions. This isn't, this is, in the world of civil engineering, this is a fairly easy site. So, you know, there are ways to manage the water and keep it out of the garage and keep it out of your house. So I don't think we should spend too much time trying to redesign your site and your stormwater. There's solutions.
But then we're changing altogether what we're wanting to build as well, because it would truly then just be a garage, not an accessory building.
So I guess the question, just to kind of narrow this down, is as we're considering this, are you saying the option of dropping the what do we call that?
Accessory?
Accessory unit?
The accessory unit, ADU, is not one that you would want to entertain?
It's not one I would want to entertain, but if the reason altogether for the variance is to keep behemoth buildings
I
from being in
understand,
front of
but
the
it's,
home, that's not the problem.
the question right now, I mean, we've heard that.
Yeah.
The question now that Jeff has asked is that something you would consider, or is that not a consideration?
At this point, I'm not sure. It would crush what I
Understand.
wanted and
I mean,
planned and dreamed for this
Your
home.
answer can be, no, we really want to proceed
Yeah,
without that
no, we
option.
really want to proceed how we had planned
Okay.
and dreamed and paid. We've already invested a lot of money with plans, with getting right now it's hard to get a flood certification. Surveyors are very tough to get
Yeah.
out to properties. And we've already put a lot of money into trying to get this properly planned and permitted.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, thank you. I don't believe we have anybody to speak for or against. Just checking. Okay, so. Figured that. All right, so the public portion of this application is closed, and we'll open it up for a what's the word I'm looking for a
Motion?
motion to deny, accept, or.
I'll make a motion to approve as, with the condition of the same plans, nothing changes.
I'll second.
So, I mean, I build houses for a living, I understand what they're trying to do here. You can, do we have a street view of this? Do we have a street view picture? Go back, there you go, that's close enough. So, yeah, we can move this thing around, they could keep their accessories, all that, but we're attaching to a master bedroom or a master bathroom, that didn't make much sense to me. We could come all the way around, the whole point of this ordinance was not to have behemoth buildings, but what's gonna look worse, a behemoth, or this garage over here with some kind of enclosed walkway coming to a doorway, I mean, is that gonna look good? And another thing that doesn't make sense, this has never made sense, this ordinance to me, is we're trying to protect the lake view of the home. So in my mind, this looks a lot better sitting back here than it does sitting up here by the lake. Now, that's just my personal opinion, but, I understand what they're trying to do with drainage. If you build something across that, you're still trying to divert water around that. We can cut a French drain in concrete before you get to garage doors. When it rains like it's been raining in the last 5 years, that doesn't work real good. So I'm on board. I see what they're trying to do, and I see the problems that they have. So I would prove the hardship being the limitations from the buffer zone in the well. I mean, you've got to stay 75 foot off that well, so you can't move those drain fields anywhere else.
And I think aesthetically from the road, you've got to, as you had pointed out, you think that the overlay was so you wouldn't have these big behemoth buildings in front of the house. I mean, it's a garage. They don't even have a garage. So, and it's gonna be a side entry, so you're not gonna even see the door bays. You'll see the side of it, unless you're driving into the driveway. You've got a great tree buffer, and to me, by putting the garage where they're proposing, you're also minimizing disruption along the buffer, the shoreline. They're a lot farther off of that, that 50-foot buffer, which to me, we're always trying to save, from erosion and everything else. So to me, that's makes up for, just having it in front of the house, and, you've got the protection. And I like a side entry garage rather than, driving in and seeing, the whole front of the garage with all the bay doors and everything. So to me, and to, with the drain field issues and I understand they want the accessory, and to me, I think aesthetically, it'll look very nice, so.
Just to add to that, I agree with Barb. I mean, we're always preaching in here, stay away from the buffer, stay away from the buffer. But, and no offense, Marion, these are great drawings you got, but, this ordinance makes no sense to me. It made no sense to me when they passed this. I know there was one council member that was really, I'll go on record and say this, that was really pushing this, and it made no sense to me. But this plan here makes more sense than trying to move it around and get closer to that lake. From an erosion standpoint, from a water runoff standpoint, I mean, just from a building standpoint, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah, well, I would agree with everything that's been said. It seems like if this was new construction,
We wouldn't be halfway in that buffer zone.
well, yeah, I can see some of the way the language is written for, if this had been new construction, or if it had been another type of structure. But as far as the garage goes, I mean, we've kind of established that these lots don't have a lot of options, and this seems to be a pretty good option. It's a side load. The garage becomes side loaded, you don't see it from the street. I hate garage doors that you see from the street. But the other thing that kind of struck me is, and I understand staff has to follow what it says in the code. and the code's limited. It can't be 500 pages long for one section. We could place this here if we find some kind of umbilical cord to make it fit the code. So it's not that the placing the structure there in itself is really that bad, as it just
Not
doesn't,
attached.
it doesn't meet the, and there are reasons in the code for things. I just think in this case, it's just, yeah. Anybody
Well, you
else?
do make a good point that the ordinance does seem to be a lot more of a burden on existing homes than new designs, but, I mean, you know, I look at the 4 points, right? And I wish somebody would go down those 4 points and explain to me how we meet all 4 points. I mean,
Give me a second.
I mean,
Yeah, I
county staff
understand.
said we didn't make a single one, so,
Oh, I
and we
see. I
have to
think-
make all 4.
I think D, you do.
I think your setbacks off your well and your buffer zone are, let's see, that fits C.
D,
These conditions do not generally apply to the other property in the vicinity because this house is halfway built in the buffer zone, whereas the other homes were probably built after the buffer zone was put in place, and so I think the ordinance reads specifically, accessory structures must be located at or behind the front building line. Well, if this house was built behind that buffer zone, then that moves our front building line way back, then I think that fits for B.
But for B, you're saying we can probably not go out there and find one other house or lot similar to this?
This says
Are
general.
these
It says
it
conditions?
says generally.
It says
It
general.
does-
That's
that's it,
general.
yeah.
So if I find 3 or 4, that's general to me. Out of 15. They say there's 15, I mean, we could name hundreds of houses on the lake, but, I think that's a problem, that's the main problem with this lot, is you go back to that picture that shows, can you go back to that picture that shows the buffer line running halfway through the house? Yeah,
That
so I mean, I would say 45% of that house, if not 50, is in the buffer. So if the front line of that house is all behind that buffer, it's all moved up the hill, then we don't have an issue at all. We can put that thing
Puts us about,
wherever we want to.
puts us about where the garage is now.
Well, actually,
the
no,
house.
that's where your house is gonna be.
No, that's what I mean, the house.
Yeah, then your garage is gonna be on closer to the road.
That's
so
what I mean, the house will be basically.
I think you could argue that all day.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, so the motion is to approve with the conditions that,
Plans and materials are to stay as noted, or
as
as
sub-
presented,
as-
as presented.
as submitted and presented. Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand. Okay, passes. Hold on. Do I have a,
Just doing their job.
we have no executive, we don't have an executive session. Do
So,
I have a
I
motion
move
to
to-
adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right,